Hi, welcome to Math Grade 4, Module 5, Lesson 20. Our objective for today is I can use visual models to add two fractions. So we're going to be working on our problem set Lesson 20, and we're going to begin with number 1. Our directions say use a tape diagram to represent each add-in. Decompose one of the tape diagrams to make like units. And then write the complete number sentence. So question number 1 has 1/4 plus 1/8. 1/4 plus 1/8. So I'm going to make my tape diagrams first. 1/4, the denominator is 4, which means then I'm going to draw 3 lines. 1, 2, 3. So now I have 4 equal parts. And my numerator is 1. So that means I'm going to shade in 1 part. The second fraction is 1/8. The denominator is 8, so that means I should have 7 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 parts. I will shade in the first part. So now I have 1/4 plus my 1/8. Well, I can't add denominators when I cannot add fractions when the denominators are not the same. So what I need to do is make an equivalent fraction. So I think, how can I change the 4 into an 8? Well, I have to multiply because I need to make it bigger. So what number can I multiply 4 by to give me an 8? Well, I know that 4 times 2 is 8. So if I multiply the 4 times 2, it will give me 8. But the rule says that whatever you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator. So 1 times 2 is 2. So I just changed 1/4 into 2/8. I made them equivalent fractions. So I'm going to do the same thing on my tape diagram. If I go to my fourths, and it said that I have to take each piece and make it into 2. So if I take each piece and make it into 2, now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So originally, this 1/4, when I multiplied it or cut them in half by 2, now the 1/4 became 2/8. And 2 out of 8, and here's 1/8. Now I can go ahead and make my new number sentence. 2/8 plus 1/8. I add my numerators. 2 plus 1 is 3. The denominators stay the same. It becomes 3/8. And the same thing up here. My 1/4, my equivalent fraction became 2/8. And 2 plus 1 is 3. And my denominator stays the same. So we went from a number sentence, we had to find equivalent fractions, and then we could add. Let's go ahead and do the next question. Okay, the next question, similar to the one that we just did. This one says 1/4 plus 1/2. So the first thing I'm going to do is fill in my tape diagram. The tape diagram 1/4, so I need 4 equal parts. I'm going to draw 3 lines. 1, 2, 3. Make sure I have 4 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to shade in the first part. That's my 1 out of 4. So this is my 1/4. And in the second picture, my second fraction is 1/12. So I need 11 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have 12 parts, and I have to shade in 1. So now I have my two tape diagrams, but as we know, we cannot add fractions when the denominators are not the same, so I have to change the 4 into 12. And since I have to make it bigger, that means I'm going to multiply. So 4 times what number will give me 12? So 4, 8, 12. I'm going to multiply it by 3. And whatever you do to the denominator, you do to the numerator. So 1 times 3 is 3. 4 times 3 is 12. So I just made an equivalent fraction. I changed the 1/4 into 3/12. So down below, I'm going to do the same thing. Instead of fourths, they want me to divide that one piece. I multiplied each piece, so I have to cut it into thirds. So in order to make this 3 pieces, I'm going to draw 2 lines. So there's 2 lines in there, 2 lines in here, 2 lines in here, and 2 lines in the last one. So now if I count them, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have now 3 twelfths shaded, and this is 1/12 shaded. So my number sentence would be 3 twelfths plus 1/12. Add my numerators, 3 plus 1, 4, and bring over the denominator. Same thing up here. 3 plus 1 is 4. Keep the denominators the same, and I ended up with 4 twelfths. Remember that when you're adding fractions, the denominators have to be the same. And in order to make an equivalent fraction, you have to change one of them to equal the denominator of the second one. All right, let's move on. We're going to move on to question number 2. And number 2 now wants us not to do a tape diagram, but they want us to use a number line. So we're going to add fractions now using a number line. Okay, so I have 1/2 plus 1/4. Before I do any of the addition, I'm going to draw my number line. I'm going to start with 0. I'm going to go to 1. And my benchmark, a half, means in the middle. So there's my half. Okay, so now I have my first fraction represented on the number line, and I have to show quarters also. So now, quarters means 4, so that means I need 3 lines. So here would be my first line, this is my second line, my third line, and my fourth line. So this would be 1/4, 2 quarters, 3 fourths, and 4 fourths. Remember 4 fourths? Anytime the numerator and denominator is the same, it equals 1 whole. So now that I have my benchmarks on my number line, I can go ahead and do my addition. The first part of my equation says 1/2. So I'm going to show my jump for the 1/2. And then the second portion says I have to add a quarter. Well, now that I have my number line all labeled, this would be 1/4. Each one of these represents quarters, so 1/4 would be one more jump. So I end up on 3 quarters. So 1/2 plus 1/4 is equal to 3 fourths. Now, how do I show that using my number sentence? Again, just like we did in the previous problems, I cannot add these because the denominators are not the same. So I have to change the 2 somehow into a 4. So what can I multiply 2 by to give you a 4? Well, 2 times 2 is 4. And remember that whatever you do to the denominator, you also have to do to the numerator. So 1 times 2 is 2. So I just made equivalent fractions. I turned 1/2 into 2/4. You also could tell that by the number line that 1/2 is also equivalent to 2/4, 2/4. So now I could go ahead and add 2/4 plus 1/4 is 3/4, which is the same answer that we just had down there. Okay, let's try another problem. Okay, 6/10 plus 1/2. I'm going to start off with my number line, and I'm going to label it with my start of 0 and 1. And my benchmark half means in the middle, so there's my half. This second fraction here has tenths, so that means I need 10 parts on my number line. So I'm going to start, remember, 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. This would be 10/10 or 1 whole. Okay, so now I can go back and label. This would be 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10, and 10/10. So I labeled my number line showing both fractions on it. And now I have to represent the two pieces being added. So the first part that I want to do is I'm going to start with my half. And I'm going to show you if I go from 0 to a half, that's my first leap. And then I also now have to add 6/10 to my half. That means I have to take 6 more jumps. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's not enough. So that means I need to add one more line to make that 11/10. So that would show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I jumped 6/10 more, so I end up on 11/10. Now let's show this using our number sentence here. Again, I need to convert one of these into an equivalent fraction. So I'm going to look at the 2, since it's the smaller denominator. How can I change the 2 into a 10? Well, I'm going to multiply it by what number to get 10? 5. So 2 times 5 gives me 10. And whatever you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator. So 1 times 5 is 5. I just changed 1/2 into 5/10. Now that the denominators are the same, I can go ahead and add 6/10 plus 5/10, and that gives me 11/10, which is what I showed on the number line. So if you were to do your equivalent fractions first, you could have done 5/10. You could show the 5/10 jump, which is equivalent to the 1/2, and then shown 6 more jumps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to get to 11/10. Okay. And the last problem that we're going to do today says solve the following addition sentence without drawing a model. So for this one, since we're not drawing a model, we're going to be using equivalent fractions. This one says, how can I change 3 into a 6? Well, I can change the 3 into a 6 by multiplying it by a 2. And since I'm going to multiply the denominator by 2, I have to multiply the numerator by 2. So that's going to give me 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 2 is 6. These two fractions are equivalent now. And I'm going to add that to the 4/6. And 4 plus 4 is 8/6. So now we figured out how to make an equivalent fraction. And remember that since 8/6 is improper, we should always simplify it, which just means take this apart, break it down. I could take 6/6 out of it, which leaves me with 2/6. Remember, both of these still add up to the 8/6, but now my answer turns out to be 1 and 2/6. Don't forget, I sent an exit ticket which has 2 problems on it. I want to make sure that you understood what I just showed you. Please complete your exit ticket. Have your parents take a picture of it, send it to your teacher so I can see if you understand how to do this lesson. And thank you for watching. Bye.